everybody, this is Mrs. Malley. I'm going to show you how to do draping with a slab to create a platter or a bowl. So some things that you're going to need when you're doing that. First thing, most important thing, you're going to need a plaster mold. You can use other forms like plastic bowls that you really like or glass bowls, but they have a shiny surface which makes the clay stick to them. So if you do use one of those, you need to cover them with newspaper, where here the plaster is porous and it absorbs a lot of the water from the clay. So if you use one of these molds, you don't really need to have anything over the top. It actually works best if it's just the mold. So I've decided to use this kind of oval shaped mold today to make a bowl, so it'll kind of sit up on the table like that. So because of that, I chose to roll a slab that is a long oval. So you can kind of see the shape of this, right? It's a little longer in one direction than it is wide. Just so you know, this is a drape mold because I'm going to drape the clay over it. We also have some slump molds. Slump molds just mean you'd put the clay over it and it'll slump down inside of the form. So this is really good if you want to do a lot of work on the inside of the mold. Typically people want to do more work on the outside though. All right, so let's get started. I have my slab here, and the first thing I'm going to do, I kind of figured out it's going to be a nice size. If I rock my mold over it from side to side, I can see that I've got enough space for that mold. So I'm going to set that to the side, and before I do anything else, I'm going to take a sponge. You can do it with a rib too, but a sponge is really nice because I'm introducing a little bit of water into the clay. And if you remember, when we add water to clay, it makes it more pliable and you can move it around a lot more. So I'm just adding a little bit. Might be nice to flip it part of the way through and do the same thing on the other side. This also creates a nice smooth surface, so when you're starting out, you've got a nice clean edge to work with. Now I know right away that this slab is way bigger than I need. I also have some areas down at the end where it's cracked a little bit. So I'm just going to cut a tiny bit off, but especially if this is your first time, I recommend just keeping the slab as big as you can, and then afterwards you can go back and cut away different parts. All right, so now I'm ready. I've got my mold here. I'm going to pick up my slab and try and move quickly, and I'm going to drape it over the top. I'll move it a little closer here. So right now it's sitting up with this kind of like weird angle off the edge because this was a flat piece. It doesn't bend perfectly. So I have some choices. If I like the way those bends look, kind of like if you think of fabric, maybe curtains, how they pucker, you can do that. And if you leave your slab overnight, your piece will stay in this exact position. So that way you'll have a really organically shaped bowl, kind of like a flower, how you have the curvy edges. Another option though is to use the mold and get that exact shape. So I'm going to show you that because it's a little more tricky. So I'm just going to start by kind of pressing my clay down a little bit. I want to be gentle. If I notice any ripping or cracks, I want to go back and add some water and just move a little slower. And you can also just take your rib tool and start pressing the clay. Sometimes, like you're probably seeing right here, I'm getting a little fold. So if you need to, you can just use a lot of pressure and smooth the clay together in those areas. Okay, so we're trying to avoid major folds, but sometimes it does happen. All right, now I've got my basic mold covered. I do have this one area that I'm going to want to clean up after. Now is another really good time to take your sponge and you can go around and smooth it. Okay, this is just making sure that all of the clay is right up against that mold the way I want it. Now I have some choices here too. This could all be my lip. I could attach this and keep it on, and then I'll have, when I turn my bowl over, I'll have the bowl part, and then I'll have these nice handles. So sometimes people like to leave those, or even just some of it, just to make kind of a decorative edge. So I could do that, like you see there. The other option is to try and go close to the edge of your piece. I recommend you can try going close. Try not to go and make your line perfect right now, because it's a lot easier when we turn over the form for you to clean it up. So this is not a perfect edge. I'll show you up close. It's a little bit messy still, but it's gonna work for now. All right, now the way that this works is I would leave it overnight. I might cover this just a little bit because I've got a lot of time till tomorrow. And then I should be able to pop it off and it will hold its shape because it'll be leather hard at that point. So this is the basics of using a slump or a drape mold.